We're here today to learn about sort of the changes in technology and where it's come from, where it's going to. Can you give me a little bit of a perspective about Microsoft's focus over the rest of 2026 and into 2027 and effectively beyond?
Yeah, look, it'll be no surprise to hear me say that we're focused on AI-driven transformation with our customers. But to be a bit more specific than that, we want to help customers think differently about how they are approaching deploying generative AI and agents, frankly, across their enterprise. So we're trying to get customers to move away from thinking about small pilots and experiments here that are disconnected to small pilots and experiments over here, and instead think about what they need to be able to build and execute on an AI strategy that is pivotal to what their broader organization is looking to achieve. And we typically talk about that in the context of supporting organizations to become frontier or to become a frontier firm. And we've got a success framework that we work with customers on to assess their readiness for that, and then when they are ready to run with that, to go and execute against it.
So we're hearing frontier firm quite often now. So describe what a frontier firm looks like and why it's different from somebody who isn't quite that big. Because the word frontier obviously means out front.
Totally.
So to describe kind of an organization.
Yeah, look, as a headline, our view is that an organization that we might consider to be frontier is a human-led, agent-operated organization that has AI at the core of everything that it's doing, ultimately with the ambition of making decisions faster, being able to execute on actions quicker in a much more streamlined way, and ultimately being able to sustain innovation consistently, really.
Can I ask, where do you see the value? I know the value. I'm asking kind of a better question.
Yeah.
But the value of being a frontier organisation versus, I'll say, laggard, an organisation that's not quite at that point. So where's the value in that bit, in the frontier bit?
The term frontier is more of a way of characterizing organizations that are doing all of the things that we see they need to be doing to harness this agentic opportunity. Right? So I think it's less about this desire of being frontier for frontier's sake. Frontier is almost the label that we put on organizations that are doing all of these things, to pull all these things together to build and deliver on an AI strategy that then enables their broader organizational strategy. And we think of or customers that we see doing this particularly well are typically doing it across 4 areas. We kind of call it our frontier success framework, and that is rethinking employee engagement, because ultimately if your employees are not on board, then you're never going to be able to scale and transform. Reinventing customer engagement, so being able to build deeper, more meaningful relationships with customers while also optimizing your costs and your kind of business structure. Reshaping business processes, so not just putting AI for AI's sake over legacy processes, but instead looking left to right at where they can genuinely transform the processes that are underpinning their business, and then bending the curve on innovation. And that 4th pillar is about using this moment to not just think about transforming how their organization runs, but transforming why their organization runs, like creating new revenue streams, new categories of business, like how can they rethink why their organization exists in the world, and how they can evolve their offering to their customers and their ultimate stakeholders.
Is that the key question? Is the key question here why? Why are you doing it as an organization? Why are you embracing and adopting AI? Is it about answering that question before you move forward for many?
For sure, but the reality is if that's we need to accelerate beyond that, right? Yes, that's an important question, but of course I'm going to say this, right? I work for one of the biggest technology companies in the world, but that's kind of a given, right? Our customers are having no choice but to invest in this technology. Can you imagine if we were sat here 30 years ago and someone was saying, this internet malarkey, I'm not getting on board with that. There's no traction in this. Like this is not really a choice anymore. And competitive advantage, by the way, isn't going to come from those that are utilizing AI in pockets, right? They've got a trial of Copilot over here, or they're automating their procure to pay process in Dynamics. That isn't what's going to gain competitive share. It's going to be the ones that are doing this at scale, that have we talk about kind of centers of excellence, frontier center of excellence, underpinning everything they're doing with all of the governance and all of the guardrails that they need to be able to do it at scale. Just kind of embed it into their organization, right? You, you wouldn't, when you were to get a new job these days, right? You wouldn't, or if you got a new job 10 years ago, you wouldn't expect having access to an office suite as being a competitive edge, right? It's just the baseline. And that's what we're seeing with these AI tools. That becomes the new normal, that the next level of innovation and differentiation comes from when AI is embedded throughout their tools. We talk about seeing agents in org charts, right? So no longer will you just see the physical humans that sit in an organizational chart, but you'll see all of the agents that are working and supporting that team in that org chart. That's the kind of tangible examples of what we mean when we talk about a frontier firm.
It's quite a lot of change. And do you think it's as much about the technology as it is about the people? Or do you think people adapting to the changes is as important as the technology in itself?
Yeah, this stuff is never going to stick unless an organization has a culture and a framework that can kind of absorb and work through this change. Because if your people are not on board, this stuff is never going to get adopted. You're going to kind of come against friction within your people, and they're not going to kind of be on the journey with you to be able to evolve in that way. So yeah, there's no two ways about it. The cultural element has to come hand in hand with the technological change. And actually, when we talk about assessing an organization's readiness, the culture of it is where you kind of have to start.
Yeah.
Yes, okay, get your data in order and start thinking about your underlying business processes, but if your people are not ready to embark on this, then it's never going to work.
I completely agree. And that's where a lot of our work comes in as a partner of Microsoft's. And where do you see kind of the partner being a pivotal element of any adoption of, or let's just say frontier, because that's kind of the bit you're aspiring to.
Yeah, it's the pinnacle, isn't it?
Yeah. So where does the partner fit in enabling that, the cultural change, that shift in mindset, that development of the technology itself to get to that point, that frontier point?
I think there's a few key roles that a partner of ours can play in helping customers get on this journey. One is industry specialism. So by design, you'll rarely see Microsoft roll out a very specific industry-focused solution. Our strategy is to offer a scalable platform that is ubiquitous, can operate in a way that is ubiquitous across any industry. And that's where we rely on partners like HSO to bring their expertise in specific industries, like manufacturing, for example, to put an industry lens on it, and to go a click deeper, to put a UK manufacturing lens on it, right? Because we're often talking about regulated industries that have specific rules and regulations and processes that we need to evolve. So a partner is really critical for doing that. The second thing I think a partner is really critical for is that kind of change in adoption and cultural piece you just mentioned, because it's really easy to turn on Copilot for 100,000 users, right? You spend some money with Microsoft, they appear in your admin center, and you turn them on. That isn't going to be a key step on your road to becoming a frontier. So you need a partner that can help you analyze where they're going to have the most impact in your organization, how you can get people on board, and also how you can measure and track that progress against a set of KPIs that you probably use a partner to help you design in the first place.
So for any organization sitting on the fence, that's not quite sure how to progress, that perhaps has turned on Copilot and is sat there going, well, this isn't really doing very much for me. What advice would you give to an organization like that in terms of moving the journey on?
I think there's a key moment in this transformation journey where we move from experiments and trials to org-wide transformation at scale. And the bit that enables that for me is when an organization wraps a kind of governance structure and what we would typically call a center of excellence or a center of enablement around that. So, you put in all of the guardrails that you might expect. You put in all of the governance frameworks. You put in the decision trees that have to be followed. We underpin that with intelligence and trust, and to make sure there's observability at every layer. And once that is in place, that might feel like an organization's taking a step back on its kind of velocity to progress here. But what we typically see is once that inflection point is in place, that actually the value scales from there. And it's not about slowing people down. It's about
creating the necessary structure and environment where this stuff can scale. Because otherwise, we're going to fast forward a few years, and there's going to be shadow AI right across the place. There's going to be pockets of brilliance, but there's going to be lots of duplicate efforts. We're going to have agents that are relying on an individual SharePoint to be able to run, and then they leave. You can imagine the web of confusion that might come about unless we do this in a way that is structured and governed.